Hello, guys. Hi. So I have a conflict on Friday. Oh, that's better. Yeah, I have a conflict on Friday, and I think I'll be able to make the last 20 minutes of class, but just in case I can't, I wanted to pop on here and make a video talking about my final. So, for those of you who read my discussion board, I decided that I wanted to do a short film, kind of documentary experience thing. I can't even describe it, but I wanted to do a documentary where I interviewed a bunch of people from the coronavirus, people at home, people on the front lines, and I just really wanted to do an interview about the coronavirus and figure it out from there and kind of figure out what I wanted to do. But I kind of had a really wide focus, and I started interviewing people, and I'm still interviewing people, but I'm realizing that now what I want it to be is going to take a lot more time, and I also want to see kind of what happens after the quarantine is done before I make this film. So, long story short, I changed my focus from the coronavirus to the campfire. Same format, same thing, but just different topic. So, I know I talked about it actually in this class, but about a year ago, my family and I lost everything in a wildfire. Everything except for our lives, which I'm very glad we didn't. But, yeah, that's something in a lot of ways I'm still dealing with, which it's yeah, of course. But, when it happened originally, I knew that I wanted to make something from everything that happened. And I ended up taking a lot of footage of the town when I was there. Footage of our house, of what had happened, of my family. And I had probably 30 hours worth of footage that I just took on my phone while everything was happening. And I wanted to do something with it, but I didn't know what. And I think part of me too was just kind of not ready to look at everything and deal with all of it. So it's just been sitting on my laptop for ever since for almost a year now. Well, not that, since January. And yeah, so for my final, I decided that I was finally going to do something with that. But to talk about it, it's a long story, but basically after the fire happened, my family and I were living on a friend's property in a neighboring town called Orland, which is really close to Paradise. And we were living in a trailer. We were, like I said, we were homeless up until July of 2019. And the fire itself raged for 3 weeks. The fire department couldn't even put it out. You probably heard it. If you watch the news, you probably heard about it. It's the deadliest wildfire that we've ever seen in California's, and actually the United States history. So it raged, burned on for 3 weeks, and nobody could go back to Paradise because that was happening. And then after they finally put out the fire, man, I'm trying to remember everything. After they finally put out the fire, we still had to wait about a month and a half before we could go back to town and see if we still had a home. Nobody was allowed to go back into town except for firemen and cops and volunteers, people who were looking for survivors, for lost pets. So we didn't know if we had a house for almost 2 months. We just didn't know. We were praying that our house survived. So we were all just waiting every day since the fire started, and we had to flee the town. That's a whole nother story. I had to flee the town while it was burning down. I was in my car with my 2 dogs, and I fled from a literal sea of fire. So yeah, a lot of fun memories. But I forgot where I was going with this. Oh yeah, so we had to wait about 2 months until we could go back, and every day since we evacuated, we were all just waiting, watching the news, waiting to hear when we could go back, because we all just want to go back and be do we have a place to live? And so the morning it finally happened, and we got the call or we heard over it on the news that officials were allowing residents to come back and view their properties. I remember I was asleep, and I think it was about 8 in the morning, and my mom told me that we could go back, and immediately I just had like this gut feeling of fear, which was crazy because I had spent that entire time wanting to go back, but I was afraid to go back. And I think because part of me knew that everything was gone and that everything was had changed. But I didn't know if I could. When I heard that, I was like, I don't know if I can go back. But in that moment, I remember I had like this vision of myself dancing in a hazmat suit in front of the house, in front of the ashes. And I had this feeling that if I could take that dance and footage of the town and create something, that I would be able to go back. And so that idea allowed me to get out of bed and to go with my family and see our house. And that's what happened. On that morning when we were allowed to go back, I just got up, and I think I kind of removed myself too. Like, by viewing everything through a lens, I was able to kind of be a specter instead of a victim. And I got like 20 hours of footage or so. I don't know how much exactly, but it was a lot. And we just drove around town, and I was filming everything that had changed, things that were destroyed. And when I got back to my house, I filmed all the damage. And this took me a long time. I went back to Paradise multiple times after that and got more footage. And I just had all this footage just sitting on my laptop, and I didn't know what to do with it. So I was like, I think at the time too, I wasn't really ready to do anything with it. Like, it just helped me cope with what had happened. But I realized, enough time has passed that I'm ready to deal with it. And this project kind of provided the perfect opportunity. So that's what I did. I combed through all the footage, and I made something that really has helped me in a lot of ways. And I haven't been able to figure out how to share it on Facebook yet, but I hope that I will. I'm definitely not a cinematographer, and I'm not the best dancer in the world, but that video has given me a lot of peace, and I'm really excited to share it with you guys. I hope you like it. I think I mentioned that I had this vision of myself dancing, and when I got back home, I just improvised a dance, and I danced all around our house and in the ashes, and I can't tell you how freeing it was to dance in the middle of destruction. And I remember the neighbors looking at me and probably thinking that I was being incredibly disrespectful to everything that had happened. So many interesting things that came out of that experience. Everybody deals with grief differently. And actually, when I initially had this idea, my dad was really upset with me for it. He did not want me to make this video. He didn't understand what I was doing. He thought that I was making fun of what had happened and that I was belittling everybody's pain and suffering. And I think it's really important to recognize that everybody deals with grief differently. And that's how I dealt with it. And yeah, you can't ever say that I didn't feel that pain, that I don't feel that pain. And yeah, I'm really, like, looking back on it now, almost 2 years later. It'll be 2 years this November. But I have learned a lot. I've gained a lot of strength and a lot of knowledge about what it means to be an artist and to create, and how important that is for the survival of humanity. But yeah, I hope you guys like this. And this video of me talking about it is longer than the actual short film thing. But yeah, I hope you like it, and I hope you watch this.